Hallo miteinander, I'm Gishady6 and this is my new Let's Play, Touhou Koukishin Adventures of Scarlet Curiosity. This game was made by the Ankake Spa Circle, who have only made one game before it, Yo-Yo Kengeki Muso, better known as that 3D Yomu game. That one was very well received. It was not only fun in gameplay, but also very technically impressive, more than the average Touhou fan game. It really gave them quite a name and made people very excited for Koukishin. We're going to start a new game as Sakuya and find out if it does the hype justice. We're starting with a pleasant surprise for some. Touhou Koukishin is fully translated already. It's kind of hard to believe. At the time this video airs, it will only be a little bit over 3 months old, but fellow Touhou enthusiast Tripflag and his team have been exceptionally devoted and localized it for us in record time. That is super impressive if you ask me. Kudos to them. Well, what is it that we are doing in this game exactly? So far, not a whole lot has been established. Remilia Scarlet is caught somewhere between being too lazy to do anything and too bored not to do at least something. There are also some flimsy rumors about a monster in the area going around. Now, if you've been exposed to Touhou enough to know about the ways of the Scarlet Devil Mansion crew, you know that Remilia is most likely to delegate annoying matters like these to Sakuya. All in all, this strongly reminds me of Remilia's story mode in Scarlet Weather Rhapsody, where she just stayed at home and had Sakuya fetch all the suspects for her. Basically, we're going to do all the dirty work here and find this monster, just so that Remilia can take over on the final act and claim all the praise and glory for herself. Yup, I suppose that is the lot in life the chief maid just has to accept. Do we get thrown into the action now? No, not quite yet. We first start off in Remilia's bedroom. I just want to make you aware here, there's a coffin on a queen-sized bed. Yes, apparently that coffin must be comfy as well. Oh Remilia, you wacky vampire. This room gives you a good chance to explore the controls in peace. You can move around, you have a standard attack, you can jump around if you want, and you also have 3 buttons to use special skills with. That knife throw just then was one of them. The way you leave this area is by approaching the center desk where the Bunbun Maru newspapers are. That'll teleport us to the first actual stage of the game shortly, the Scarlet Devil Mansion's premises around Misty Lake. Those newspapers, by the way, also make up part of the game's narrative. You can look at them in the pause menu. We won't ever be doing that directly. Instead, I'll make screenshots of these newspapers and put them in the forum threads linked in the description. That way, those of you who are curious and haven't played the game can look at them at your leisure. And we are off. It won't be too long until we run into some vermin that have invaded our property. The nerve. There's one already, a simple fairy. Needless to say, these are complete cannon fodder. And right here is where the RPG elements come into play. We have 3 designated slots to equip items on. The one we just got, a throwing knife, is of course a weapon, and it goes in the first slot. The pause menu is also where we set our skills. We only have 3 of these right now, so there's not a whole lot to do. I only just switched around charge stub and knife throw, just so that they're on different buttons. It's simply a personal preference of mine. Those skills I've mentioned, charge stub and knife throw, are of course very cool and helpful. We would rely only on them, but alas, their use is not indefinite. They are tied to a resource, the one you see in the lower left corner of the screen, in form of these blue diamonds. Each use of a skill will deplete a certain number of diamonds, but luckily they will regenerate on their own simply over time. And because of that, you don't ever have to be too stingy with the use of your skills, especially when you have advanced further into the game, as you will gain additional skill diamonds and even increase the rate at which they regenerate. You know, let's just stop for a second here on this pier and enjoy the scenery. It's so nice, isn't it? It's good to take in a little bit of nature from time to time, but we can't be lazy. Let's get back on track. Just a little before, we have picked up an apron. Aprons are, as dumb as that may sound, a type of armor. In most RPGs, armors decrease the damage you suffer from enemy attacks. However, this game doesn't have such a stat, so instead, they just increase your maximum hit points. But does it even matter how exactly a game handles armor? No, it will always keep you from getting killed horribly. An increase of hit points may be the dominant stat on armors, but especially later on in the game, you may find other bonuses on them as well. Next up, we have found a brush. That is an accessory and therefore goes into the third slot. Accessories do a number of things. They will give you more skill diamonds, increase the rate at which those regenerate, and also improve your item drop rate. Or as you may call it in the common MMO lingo, your magic find. Any vase you destroy or enemy you defeat can leave behind an item, and a high value in item drop rate will improve the chances for this. I don't think that stat improves the quality of what you find, but you still want a lot of loot, as much as you can. Well, Sakuya just went a little bit wild there. You alright, girl? As some of you might have guessed, that was a spell card. It also had a very fancy name, Wound Sign Inscribed Red Soul. Spell cards are very different from your normal skills. They don't have anything to do with your skill diamonds. Instead, to use one, the big pink diamond in the very lower left has to be full. That one does not regenerate on its own. Instead, you will gradually fill it by landing hits. It doesn't take exceptionally long for it to be full, but it's still long enough that you want to be a little bit more thoughtful and strategic in your use of spell cards. That deck brush is gonna serve us nicely. It's a bit stronger than the throwing knives we've been using before. I didn't quite say it yet, but weapons obviously are there to make you hit stuff harder. Duh. It's not quite as simple as that though. Apart from a stat for raw attack power, each weapon also has an individual critical hit chance, as well as a stat to determine how much that critical hit is even worth. So you need to weigh all these factors in your head to determine how strong a weapon really is. Well, would you look at that, we have leveled up to level 2. Leveling up in Touhou Koukishin is fairly standard and automated. On most levels you gain passive bonuses like extra hit points and attack power. On a few certain levels you also gain additional skill diamonds and even brand new skills to use. It doesn't get much more complicated than that, not like in a lot of RPGs nowadays where you set perks and all these things. Nothing like that. We didn't gain anything extraordinary upon reaching level 2. We still only have the 3 skills that we've been using throughout. Now all this talk about experience and level ups will likely raise an urgent question for you. Is this game grindy? And no, it is not. Until you reach a certain very late point in the game, you can't actually replay old levels. Not actually a problem, cause unless you avoid the majority of your enemies, you won't ever feel underleveled. I can assure you that the majority of your success depends on your playing ability. And that is exactly how it should be with these games, if you ask me. I want to say another word about spell cards. It's true that you want to use them strategically, but if at all sensible, you also want to use them frequently. The thing is, keeping a full pink diamond is somewhat of a waste. When it's full, it's full. Hoarding energy beyond that is not going to let you use more than one spell card. So, this section of the intro stage is about to come to an end. In the minimap on the top left corner, you can see that there is a narrow passageway. That is a bridge that, on contact, will warp us to a completely new area. Now you can see that there is some space behind that bridge. However, we cannot go there yet. There is a good reason that it's there, and a time will come where that will become relevant again. That time, however, is not now. We're going to reach that bridge again in just a few moments, after we've explored the rest of the map and got an apron. That one-eyed wager is not all that important, but we did find a superior deck brush and an amethyst just a little before. Those are some good items that we'll likely equip, but I don't want to interrupt the game for every little new drop. We'll find the time for that eventually. Alright, new place. Going to show you some scenery first. We are further away from the Scarlet Devil Mansion, and there's a lakeside gazebo up ahead. I think that's what you call those buildings. I don't know exactly, but that gazebo is actually very relevant to us. It is our next destination. This is one of several areas in the game where the camera is set sideways to you. I like to call them 2D areas in my head, even though nothing about them is two-dimensional. The plane is not flat, you can still move in all directions. It's just that the path is so narrow anyways that you barely ever have to adjust your position. That makes these parts of the game feel a lot more like a side-scroller. To me, there's something really refreshing about these not exactly 2D segments. It's just really nice, for example here how the camera circles the lake with you. There's that gazebo from before again. It doesn't look like there's much going on around it right now, but that'll change once we get there. Someone has also pasted a newspaper on a sign next to it. That one shows the supposed monster, the cause of our investigation. We will go for that gazebo, but first we want to get this prize over here. That one is always a good item, and an easily missable one too. Speaking of items, we should finally check for what we have. Now with all the micromanagement that comes with these kinds of games, I will try to minimize it for you in the future. I don't know to what extent yet though. Perhaps I'll even cut it completely and banish all the information about equipment and skills to the threads. I'll decide on it in time. For now, we'll leave it as it is. Alright, I think we are finally ready for whatever awaits us. And that whatever happens to be one of my favorite goofballs in all of Gensokyo, Luna Child. She is one of the 3 mischievous fairies who have had their game debut in Touhou 12.8 Great Fairy Wars. Since then, they've often appeared as mini-bosses and sometimes bosses in fan games. You can already tell that this is going to be no different here, as this conversation is already turning sour. I believe you are trespassing is Sakuya's way of saying I'm going to gut you. It's really too bad, but it looks like we're going to have to beat up Luna. Why do I regret this so much? Well, you're going to find out in just a few seconds, as the fight has now started for real. And it's right here. Yes, that is her melee attack, tripping and falling flat on her face. And yes, that can hurt you. Luna is known as the klutz of her trio, and that just greatly amuses me. What can I actually tell you about this fight? Not a whole lot. Luna's attacks are slow, predictable, and if they do catch you, not too damaging on average. It's not like you can really expect much here. It is only the boss of the intro stage, so it's not meant to be a climactic battle at all. And she's gone already. We leveled up not once, but twice for winning. Yeah, bosses tend to give a good chunk of experience in this game. We also gained a new skill. We're going to save its use for another time. So what's next? That is next. That crashing sound can't have been anything good. We're going to find out exactly what it was right now. Well, this looks pretty catastrophic. The formerly so majestic Scarlet Devil Mansion is looking more like an ancient ruin now. Chaotic and dirty and invaded by feral fairies. I don't think they're supposed to be the ones usually working here. I guess that is a fortunate thing. Sakuya is free to vent out all her frustration on them. Because really, this has to be very traumatizing for a cleaning maniac like her. Poor girl. While the mansion isn't meant to look very nice right now, this area does impress me quite a bit. I really appreciate what they did with the lighting and the shadows here. From the ground, you can spot all the holes in the ceiling. And they're not just simple holes either. You can spot these broken planks and such. It's all really very detailed. I can already tell you that this won't be the only time you'll hear me fawn over how this game looks. No, definitely not. As I've mentioned at the very start of the video, Ankake Spa visually impresses with their titles more than the average Touhou fan game. They did so with Kengeki Muso, with Koukishin likely even more so. Everyone must be so jealous of their work. No, I don't actually think so. I think the Japanese doujin scene is likely very supportive of one another. After all, they're all small-time developers. Just a few seconds ago, we have seen Mei Ling and completely ignored her, as if she's not worth talking to. Of course she is, but doing so will advance us to the next area, and we don't want to do that just yet. There are still places to explore and find. Most notably is down here, the ominous basement door. Beyond it lurks the terrible Flandre. We can't actually go in there and see her, but perhaps that is a good thing. Depending on the type of fandom, she is not a fun company to have around. Even though the basement may be inaccessible, I still think it's cool that it's there. It gives the mansion features, and it's just nice to see this attention to detail, to know that it's there because it should be. It's really too bad that it's impossible to enter there. Or is it? You know, we can't be absolutely sure that it is. Maybe it is not possible right now, or maybe I just don't know how. Could be anything. Finally, some more enemies to fight. It was getting lonely already. You must be wondering about the items that all enemies drop in bunches, the ones that Sakuya automatically sucks up like a vacuum. The blue transparent ones are experience points, whereas the small yellow ones are coins, money used for purchase at a certain place in the game. Here's a neat little vantage point. You can view the damaged roof I mentioned, as well as the hall below. It's also strangely funny how tall the railing is. It makes Sakuya look really puny in comparison. Oh, you know, working safety. Don't want anyone sliding down there and going splat, nope. Back once more about the automatic collection of experience and money. It's all in all really cool. It gives the game a good flow because you don't have to stop for everything. It is not without flaws though. Sometimes these items can get stuck behind obstacles, which can make them more annoying to collect, if possible at all. We'll likely see an example of that at some point in the Let's Play. We did a whole lap around the mansion's first floor, so I think we've got everything here. It's time we left this area. Well, it looks like Mei Ling wants to take all the blame for this predicament on herself. That's fine by me. I mean, I have no idea what she could have done about it, but if she wants to volunteer, she'll be our scapegoat. The library. It's an all-around fancy looking place too. I like it a lot. You'll be seeing it a lot if you're playing this game for yourself, as it is somewhat of a safe haven for you. The safe haven for saving your game. Patchouli will be our friendly, if incredibly bored looking save assistant. Yes, Mei Ling, this is clearly all your fault. Nothing bad would have happened if you hadn't been such an imbecile. You failure, you. Nonetheless, we've got quite a big reveal on our hands. This quest has started off as a simple scavenger hunt for a monster no one had believed in, but now it is confirmed, and it is so on. With the destruction of our beautiful home, this has become personal. That monster is going down hard. Easier said than done though. We know extremely little about that monster, and most importantly, we don't even know where to find it. Our search for it will lead us all over Gensokyo. We will see all kinds of wonderful places. Unless of course we find it immediately. I think I can reveal that we won't do that, because it really wouldn't be much of a game if we did, right? And with that, we have a fairly standard Touhou game premise. These games usually start off very vague and mysterious in their plots, not revealing a whole lot. Now the conversation is going towards Remilia, and I really like Sakuya's reaction there, that ellipses. To the rest, she's putting on a facade full of confidence, but in her head, you know she's freaking out. Probably picturing Remilia as extremely dead already. I'm talking about the crows have picked out her eyes kind of dead. And that does it for the intro stage. Now let's return to the library one more time and save our game for good measure. On that note, a bit of trivia about saving your game. On release with a completely unpatched game, you didn't actually have any fixed save slots. You had to rely completely on your one autosave per character. I find it so weird that such an important function was missing at first and had to be patched in. With that, I'm Gish86, this was Touhou Koukishin, and next time we will learn of Remilia's fate. She may or may not be extremely dead. Bis bald!